and you're not thinking anymore about it, and you're done, you count it up to 8, and you're ready to invite, or with this hand over here, to just transfer to spades and pass because you only have 7. So we want to start pushing this into some deeper territory. And another thing to remember, now it doesn't apply on this particular hand because of the no trump opening and all the systems that come with this, but we'll look at some other hands and have in the past. Remember that the value of your hand is not static, right? So, I think we had, in fact, I think we had a hand in one of the play sessions that started like a spade, started with the spade opening, and the responder had a singleton spade, and we said, okay, don't get that excited about this hand, it wasn't a game-forcing hand. But then opener rebid hearts, and now all of a sudden we were in business because responder had 4 or 5 hearts, something like that. So remember that you do get to evaluate, reevaluate, and adjust the value of your hand up and down as the auction proceeds. And if things are getting worse and worse, you can pull the ripcord and bail out and not get any higher than you want to be. On the other hand, if your hand is getting better, we want you to upgrade. So, just because the hand looked a certain way when you picked it up, remember that is subject to change. So. All right. So I have about a half dozen goals for the class, and so a number of these relate directly to things that are in the book. So number one is, as you've discovered, getting started in the book, is we want you to learn to listen and speak in bridge English, i.e. Bringlish, to help visualize hands. We're going to be doing some of that today. And yes, it's kind of corny, and when I started reading this book for the first time, I was laughing. I was like, Bringlish, okay. But as silly as that is exactly what we're doing, right? We have been, we ask you, what is Bringlish? It's the vocabulary of our bidding. It's a very limited language that has 5 ways that you can describe strain, as we call it, right? 4 suits or no trump, 7 levels by number, pass, double, and redouble. Everything that's in your bidding box. That is the extent of our language. And the challenge is to converse in this language and then interpret it so it makes sense. And that is, that is really the biggest challenge of this game, right? To try and have some sort of sensible dialogue. And we've all been doing this for a while, but now we want to really take it to the next level. And with our initial example hand, I think you'll get more of a feel for that. So number 2 is employ negative inferences and make deductions. You've probably heard me say, I want everybody to be thinking as much about what partner didn't do in the bidding, and for that matter, the opponents, as what partner did do. It's very easy to see, okay, partner opened a spade. I know that my partner has 5 spades because we play 5-card majors, But then as the auction develops, we get into the territory of, what partner didn't do. Partner didn't raise my suit. Partner didn't rebid no trump when there was an opportunity to do that. And then draw your inferences from that. Oh, partner probably doesn't have a balanced hand. Partner probably has a singleton. Partner doesn't have a 6-card suit because partner didn't rebid that suit and things like that. What didn't happen is as important, if not more important, than what did happen. And if you have gone forward in the book, this is what Woolsey calls the dogs that don't bark. If you've come across that, yeah. I think it's more. I think it's like maybe chapter 5. Check. Yes. Around there. So we'll be talking about non-barking dogs in future weeks. But that's the that I think is really critical. Number 3, and we'll get into this next week, I believe. Distinguish the difference between informational bids and instructional bids. And you may have seen those terms in the book.
Say that one more time.
With bids generally fall into one of 2 categories: informational or instructional. And some bids are both at the same time. Some are both informational and instructional at once. Jacoby transfer is actually a good example of one that fits both. So we'll be getting into that. But often you have a choice. Yes, sometimes it's pretty clear cut which approach you should take. Do you want to do something instructional, or do you want to provide partner with some information? Sometimes you have a choice, and we'll get to some hands. In particular, I know there's a hand down the road in the book where partner opens a major, and you've got a big major suit fit, and you have a singleton, and you have to make a decision. You're like, okay, well, gee, there are different ways I could go with this hand. I could splinter in my singleton. I could go with Jacoby 2-0 and set up a game 4 showing a big fit. And you have multiple reasonable decisions. It is not a clear cut, well, this is the right approach and this is the wrong approach. But where we're going to cycle through and try and figure out, okay, what is the best approach with this particular hand? So that's something where you'll actually have some decisions there. But then there are others where it's pretty straightforward what your approach should be. Actually, that hand we just looked at, that 7-point hand with 5-4 in the majors, you could be choosing from a couple of different approaches. And so related to that informational and instructional bit is what I have as number 4 on my list, is really understanding the concept of captaincy. And this is Woolsey's, something I've talked about a long time, and I was very excited when I got this book and found out that Woolsey has a chapter dedicated to this idea that he calls "Oh Captain, My Captain." And really understand when you are in control of the auction, when you need to take control of the auction, and perhaps make the final decision on the contract. Or when you are supposed to be yielding the partner and realizing when the decision is not yours to make because you aren't equipped with as much information as partner is. So number 4 is captaincy. Number 5, we just talked about knowing when to evaluate and reevaluate your hand. So during an auction, try and help you decide maybe when you should push or stretch a little bit, and when you should be more conservative. And then number 6 is advanced planning on hands where you might encounter a future bidding problem. And this is one of those areas where, sometimes you might have to break a rule for the sake of, keeping yourself, out of, trouble. So we've looked at, a hand very similar to this in the past, and that this, falls into the category of, okay, do you open one heart or do you open one no? Now, we all, by agreement, are willing to open one no with a 5-card major. And so, hopefully, we would do that because that's our style. Anyhow, but what would you do if you were, what if you were playing with a partner who said, "Oh, I don't open a no trump with a 5-card major. Gotta open the major." Okay, fine. We're going to be very rigid about that and say that you must open a heart with this hand. But then I would ask you, what are you going to do next? Because you should be thinking about your rebid, in particular, if partner does something like bid a spade. Well, you have a rebid problem, right? And if you're saying, well, I'm gonna rebid a no trump because I'm balanced, well, you have 16, but your one no rebid shows 12 to 14. Well, if you're calling this a balanced hand, you might as well get your point count right and just open a no trump the first time, right? You're not good enough to jump to 2 no trump. You don't have a second suit. You might raise partner spades on 3, but then how do you do that, right? I mean, if you raise to 2, again, you're showing a minimum hand, and your hand's better than that. But you wouldn't want to jump to 3 spades with only 3 card support and 16 points. So so you have a problem with this hand. Well, you can solve most of your problems by just opening a no trump. And if it turns out that you play in one no, and the hand would have played better in, say, 2 hearts, or even where if you had opened a heart and then partner would have been able to, say, squeak out a raise to 2 hearts or something like that. Okay, we have to live with that. We can't do everything at once. Now, anytime partner is going to force the game, we should be fine, right? If partner uses puppet statement, we know what our answer is, right? If partner uses regular statement, we get to bid our hearts and at least have a shot, even if partner thinks it's only a 4-card suit initially. So this really only tends to be an issue on the hands where partner's pretty weak, and we end up playing a part score, and maybe 2 hearts is a better part score than 1 no. Okay, well, we live with that. I mean, if partner transferred to spades, we wouldn't be upset, would we? I mean, but that would say that we'd have an 8-card spade fit, and we have king third. Pretty good holding. I wouldn't be, we can forget about playing in hearts pretty easily if it turns out we have an 8-card spade fit. So a lot of things can go right if you open a no trump with this hand, but so a lot of things could go wrong if you don't. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about the future planning, and being prepared for things that can happen in the auction. So of all those things on that list, again, some things Woolsey is very explicit about. He's got this chapter on captaincy. He's got this chapter on negative inferences, the non-barking dogs and things like that. And then some of the other things you may not. That's this evaluation and this advanced planning in the auction. Those are more my words than his, but those concepts are woven through the book, and we will be looking at example hands in weeks to come. And She said, yeah, so we're gonna try and have a conversation in Bringlish, right? Before we get into that, one more thing, and this is just kind of this is, because he uses this example early in the book, but on this idea of hand evaluation and you know, perhaps breaking rules. Which of those two hands is the better hand?
14 high card points.
The one with 14 high card points, right? You've also probably heard me say, and I don't know the rules